what am I supposed to think as a black person sitting in this country right now? Does he think I am a monkey? Does his supporters think I'm a monkey? It's like, there is something about the deleting, but it is like, are we comfortable with a person that thinks like that would even do that to be in an office in the White House?
MAGA is losing its cool after Donald Trump's latest post on Truth Social, and the reaction has been intense. We're about to break down a heated panel discussion from Abby Phillip's show featuring Ashley Allison, MAGA supporter Joe Borelli, and several others as they debated this very issue. I'll also be sharing my own perspective as we go. So let's dive in and unpack everything together.
Is one of the most shocking posts that Donald Trump has ever shared also one of the least surprising? In a late-night posting storm, which has become more and more common, the President of the United States shared a racist video depicting Barack and Michelle Obama as apes. The outrage came quickly, even from many Republicans who called it vile and disgusting. But in their first response, the White House defended it as just an internet joke and accused everyone of fake outrage. Then, a few hours later, amid all of the backlash, they blamed a staffer and removed the post. So what is perplexing about all of this is how shocked Republicans claim to be by this. Trump has a long history of racist posts, comments, and actions, and yet they were all dismissed or ignored by those same people. And it's done nothing to change the level of support instead that he receives from these very Republicans. Tim Scott said, "This is the most racist post I've ever seen come out of this administration." And as someone pointed out on social media, what was the second most racist post he'd ever seen come out of this administration? Since when is that the bar?
Yeah. I mean, you know, when I saw this today, like, it's the dual feelings that you identify, both shocked and not shocked at all, because this is someone who, this is not only a racist post, but a president who is engaged in racist policies, who has encouraged racist rhetoric from his supporters, who came to office on behind a racist conspiracy about Barack Obama. So this is all within his kind of political history. I guess I would also say that when you think about the Tim Scotts or some of the black conservatives, I know Byron Donalds was on the phone with the White House today. I have it feels to me as if I've never seen someone sign up or give up some of their values for Donald Trump and they don't get embarrassed in the end, you know? And so I think it's inevitable when you kind of cede some of yourself and your values to him. He ensures embarrassment.
And that's actually part of the political strategy.
And I think that how much folks will take is a question he will always get to.
And where's the staffer, by the way, who did this? Has this person been frog marched out of the White House yet? Or did a staffer actually do this? I mean, these are the kinds of, there used to be accountability.
Dare I say, Charlie, no one believes that a staffer did
I know.
this, okay? It's 10, 11 p.m. at night. The president is in the residence and he is on social media. Let's not, I think it is so silly that we have to give credence to these very obvious lies that come out of the White House sometimes on this stuff.
I agree. I agree. But if it were really a staffer, they would have been fired. And we would know who they are.
Would they? I mean, like, it's
in
like
any functional environment, any other
in a
place in
functional
America,
environment, but we're not here there. You know, we're not there. I think a couple of things. One, I saw it, I expected it, I'm not surprised, but I have the ability to do two things at once, and that is acknowledge how unacceptable it is, but also ask the question of what else happened that you were trying to cover up by doing this. So you arrest Don Lemon and then you go to Fulton County and try and raid the voter rolls in a county that you are concerned. You release the Epstein files and you go to Fulton County. There is a distraction tactic that this administration does, and we cannot be distracted by this. We also should not be surprised by it, but we also shouldn't be silenced by it, because there are many times I come on these shows and I say, when there's a group chat and they're saying racist things like the N-word and J.D. Vance doesn't stop it at the gate and says, make some excuse, I'm being too sensitive. When it's the eating the cats and dogs, it's just too much. It's just too much. Those are warning signs of people who have behavior like this. And then when it comes out, it is like defend, then delete, pretend like it didn't have it, and make a pivot. We can't be surprised. We can't be silenced, but we can't also be distracted.
Can I play this? This is a C-SPAN caller who is a 3-time Trump voter and called in to say this about how he feels about the president right now.
Voted for the president, supported him, but I really want to apologize. I mean, I'm looking at this awful picture of the Obamas. What an embarrassment to our country. All this man does is tell lies. He is not worthy of the presidency. He takes bribes blatantly, and now he's being a racist blatantly. He's pathetic as a president, and I just want to apologize to everybody in the country for supporting this rotten man.
I know it's going to be easy for a lot of conservatives to dismiss that, but if you really look, as we've been talking about the polls and what they say about what independent and swing voters are thinking, there are a lot of people like that who are in that place right now. There was a poll this week that talked about, does Trump share your values? Does he have basically the ethics to be president? In the 60s, say he does not. That's a problem.
Let's start with the response, right? So this is obviously a case where the second response should have been the first response, if that's what the truth was. I mean, that said, the fact that they had a first response that perhaps wasn't entirely true is problematic in and of itself. I don't think you're going to find, and you haven't seen any Republicans, any conservatives come out, and really defend this, nor should they. The idea, the defense that this was part of the minute you start having to
stitch together all these excuses, yeah.
Right, there's a credible screen grab of that by the president's Twitter handle, a truth handle, and it shouldn't have happened. So they should take responsibility. They should apologize and then seek to move on, not sort of deflect and try to hope it goes away.
But what are a lot of people supposed to feel about what?
First, I want to give credit to Joe Borelli for actually saying what needed to be said, because there really is no excuse for this. And instead of falling back on the usual MAGA response of saying, yeah, but what about Joe Biden, or shifting the blame somewhere else, he stayed on point, so credit where it's due, especially since he's normally on Abby Phillips' show doing all kinds of mental gymnastics to defend whatever Donald Trump has done that week and somehow pin it on Democrats. So that stood out. But I also strongly agree with Ashley Allison, because she's looking at the bigger picture here. And too often the media and shows like this zoom in on one outrageous thing Trump has done. And yes, posting that video was outrageous, and people are understandably upset. Even some MAGA voters who have supported him more than once are saying that was too much. But it always turns into that familiar line of, I don't like the tweets, but I like the policies. And as Ashley points out, it's never just one thing. It's the comments about eating cats and dogs. It's the birther conspiracy. It's something new every single day. And Trump says or does things daily that would have instantly ended anyone else's political career. If you look back, Gary Hart's campaign collapsed over an affair. Howard Dean's campaign fell apart after one awkward yell at a rally. And yet Trump can make constant outrageous statements, push conspiracies, misspell words, or say things that would have destroyed someone like Dan Quayle for spelling potato wrong, and nothing sticks, nothing changes. And from my perspective, I don't want a president who is constantly tweeting unless it's an official White House message about actual policy. I don't want a president sharing memes and random videos. And I know the MAGA crowd will say he's just joking and the left has no sense of humor and that critics attack him for everything. But I'm sorry, the presidency is not a comedy club. There's a time and place for jokes, like at the White House Correspondents' Dinner once a year. But the rest of the time, this is one of the most serious jobs in the world. These are decisions about war and peace, about life and death, about policies that impact millions of Americans and people across the globe. And I'm exhausted by the trolling. I don't want a president who behaves like an internet troll, and I don't want members of Congress acting that way either. And in the next election, if we have one, I hope reporters press Republican candidates and ask how voters are supposed to know when something is a joke and when it's actual policy, because that distinction matters. And to me, the real issue people are missing is that a president should rise above the rest of us. They should be intelligent, disciplined, thoughtful, not someone scrolling social media for information, sharing conspiracy theories, and repeating them in press conferences and debates. I don't want a president who feels like someone I could casually grab a beer with. I want someone steady, serious, and maybe even a little boring. Someone focused on running the country instead of chasing laughs and posting memes while the weight of the nation sits on their shoulders.
I would have a real conversation about this, because what that tells me is that the person who made history held the job that he currently has, the highest office in the land. He sees them as monkeys. And we know historically that people have looked as black people as less than human, that they were 3/5 of a person and they didn't deserve the right to vote. And so if that is the place where the again, and Make America Great Again goes back to, what am I supposed to think as a black person sitting in this country right now? Does he think I am a monkey? Does his supporters think I'm a monkey? It's like, there is something about the deleting, but it is like, are we comfortable with a person that thinks like that would even do that, to be in an office in the White House.
I always thought this was the heart of birtherism, that to denigrate Barack Obama, to denigrate someone who achieves the highest office in the land, isn't just about the individual action of those individual men. It is about the signal that it sends to a community largely, that your achievements, your accomplishments does not overwhelm that perception. And so I think that message is received by a lot of people. And I frankly think that the White House's initial response is in line with what they've done about Minneapolis, they've done about a lot of other things. They're increasingly telling the public to not believe their eyes. And honestly, that ain't work out for Biden, and that's not gonna work out for Donald Trump either. Like, their credibility loss, I think, has been legitimate. And I think that they cannot keep sending people out here with excuses that even their supporters know are lies.
Well, that gentleman who just spoke, he represents what I call the double haters. This is a guy who probably voted for Donald Trump in spite of his conduct. Didn't like him, but he disliked Kamala more, so he voted for Trump. There are a lot of people like that out there, and frankly, these racist comments and all these other crazy things happen in Minnesota and Epstein and elsewhere. All these people, who had doubts about Trump, have even more, and many of them are either not going to show up or they're not going to vote Republican in the midterm. So this is an enormous problem for Republicans. So all the things you pointed out, Ashley, are true, but I do think it is having a real impact on the body politique.
All right. Thank you, guys. Next for us.
All right, just to recap, this is probably one of those stories that by tomorrow or the next day will be completely forgotten. And then Donald Trump will move on to the next outrageous thing, because that's the pattern we've watched for years now. And this administration is not going to learn any lesson from this moment. They are not going to rein him in. The White House is not going to step in and limit his social media posts. Nothing is going to change. And it reminds me of those reports about Trump's father when he was suffering from Alzheimer's, and they reportedly created a fake office for him so he could go there every day and feel like he was working. And you almost wonder, half seriously, whether something like that is what's happening now, because it often feels like other people are actually running the government, while Trump focuses on whatever personal project or money-making scheme has his attention, whether that is crypto ventures he likely doesn't even fully understand but wants attached to his name so he can make more billions, or cosmetic changes and renovations, while someone like Stephen Miller appears to be shaping major policy decisions, especially on immigration. So it raises the question, can anyone take the phone away? Can anyone deactivate the account so he thinks he is posting, but nothing actually goes out? Because at this point, the chaos just feels constant. And as I said before, tell me in the comments if you agree that maybe it is time to return to having a boring president, someone steady and serious. Although I honestly do not know how you put that genie back in the bottle after nearly a decade of this political circus. Because it is hard to imagine Republicans suddenly toning it down when figures like J.D. Vance are seen as future frontrunners. And even if he presents himself differently, he still embraces the trolling style and frames criticism as the left having no sense of humor. So, if Republicans are not going to lower the temperature, then the question becomes, can Democrats consistently offer serious, disciplined leadership? I'm not sure, but looking at this particular panel on Abby Phillip's show, it was actually rare to see broad agreement without a MAGA voice constantly fighting everyone else. Even Joe Borelli acknowledged the obvious here. So, do you side with Ashley Allison and the others who argue this is simply par for the course with Trump after literally 10 years of this behavior? Or do you see it differently? Let me know what you think about this segment from Abby Phillip's show. And if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like and subscribe.